SWIST. So if this is your first time joining, the SWIST vision is to create an environment where women and girls in Canada can pursue their interests, education, and careers in STEM without barriers. So we aim to accomplish this through education, networking, mentorships, partnerships, and advocacy. And as well, you can visit our website to check out a couple of the initiatives that SWIST also offers. There's a mentoring and networking, initiative, sorry. That's called Make Possible. We also have another initiative for immigrating women in STEM and a junior initiative to get women involved in STEM from a young age. You can visit our SWIST events page as well to see any upcoming events, and this link will also be up at the end of the presentation. I'm also honored to be part of the SWIST events team and work alongside some fantastic people. So myself, I'm currently doing my PhD at the University of Ottawa in biomechanics, focusing on low back pain and prevention through investigation into mechanical causes of dysfunction. I would like to pass it over to my other moderating co-host, Ashima.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. And so my name is Ashima, and I have been given an honor to moderate tonight's session. And I'm really looking forward to talking to our amazing panelists today. So just to give you a quick introduction myself, I have a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biophysics from Kansas State University. And following that, I did a postdoc at University of California and ended up training in plant genetics. I am pretty new to Canada. I moved here end of last year. And just like most over here, I'm also looking forward to transitioning into the biotech sector. I am also a member of SQuest, and I'm involved with the events team. And because I'm very passionate about the community that SQuest has created. So as I said before, I am interested and very interested in hearing tonight's conversation and really looking forward to it. So warm welcome to Chris, Shweta, and Amanda. And with that, I'll pass over to Tiana to introduce our panelists for today.
All right. So firstly, I would like to introduce our first panelist, Dr. Shweta Ganapati. I'm so sorry. So she is the MITAC's Canadian Science Policy Fellow, and she's also currently a policy analyst at the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada. She joined NSERC as a policy analyst in 2020, and she holds a PhD in organic and analytic chemistry from the University of Maryland. She has also worked as a program manager at the Canadian Science Policy Centre and as a research scientist at a Maryland-based biotech startup, SD Nanosciences, before that. Our second speaker tonight, Amanda, is a project manager at Live Medical Education Agency. She's also the co-founder of the Immigrant and International Women in Science Network. They're very active on Twitter. Go check them out. Shameless plug. She has also worked in different fields such as training, e-learning, digital innovation, communications, and marketing tailored to the life sciences sector. She is a strong supporter of empowering immigrant women in STEM and has served as the IWS National and Montreal-node leader. She's also been highlighted as part of 1 Million Women in STEM campaign and is a speaker on numerous events and panels on science career transitions. And finally, we have Dr. Chris Trobershei, and he is the Director of Research and Communication at NutriAg Limited. And Chris is responsible for managing a team of research associates who conduct testing on a variety of products on many crops across North America. He holds a Master of Science and a PhD in botany from the University of Guelph, and he's responsible for educating dealers and growers from Canada and beyond on the science behind foliar feeding. So, just to get started and warm things up, welcome speakers. You would all unmute your microphones, it's totally fine.
Thank you.
So first, let's talk about your pathway to your current role. So a little bit about what your educational journey looked like, and did you know that when you started this, that you wanted a career outside of academics?
I can take that since my mug is still up there, I guess. Um, uh, so I started off, I think I stumbled into sciences, really. I was planning on doing law, and in high school, I just managed to take a grade 12 science course, and I really liked it. So then I totally switched. So I find myself at the end of high school, and I jumped into a college program at Seneca College in Toronto, and it was for a lab technician. And I thought that sounds cool. I'd like to do that. So I went through that program, and I did quite well. So at the end of that program, Seneca had a link up to get a year and a half of a molecular biology and genetics bachelor's at Guelph. You got that credit for the first year and a half. So I fast tracked in Guelph, finished up my bachelor's, and at the end of that, of course, you have your big research project. And I found a professor, and then at the end of the project, he says, "Hey, would you like to do a master's? Have you ever thought of that?" No, I've never considered that a day in my life. So think about it for a couple days. Sure, I'll do that. That gives me something to do for 2 years. At the end of the master's, I got to go to a conference down in Florida. It's a plant biology conference, and that was where I saw, oh wow, you can be a scientist for real. Like this is a job that you can have. So I thought maybe I could do a PhD. So I decided, well, I would apply for a PhD. I asked the same professor I was with because I thought, I didn't, my master's, I had one publication out of it, but it wasn't too much. So I finished my PhD there. At the end of that, wow, this is basic science. What am I going to do now? Okay, well, I better postdoc because that's what you do, right? You have a PhD, so then you postdoc because you're just going to be a professor. That's what you're thinking. Mm-hmm. Well, at the end of that, you start to apply for jobs, and whoa, that's a tough row to hoe. So not finding anything in academics, then you start applying in industry, and here I am.
Oh. Well, I guess I'll go next since it's kind of very similar to yours, Chris. Well, I guess it's for all of us, it's kind of the same thing. So for me, I'm originally from Lebanon, so I'm not even here. I'm an immigrant woman in science, and that's how kind of became the co-founder of IWS Network, along with some brilliant women also as well. What I did was I finished my undergrad in clinical laboratory science, which is kind of like medical technology. Then I decided, okay, I'm going to check some master's programs or some postgraduate programs to just see what's out there. And then I got accepted at McGill, moved here to do my master's, and I had a plan. So I had a plan. I'll move here, do my master's, do my PhD. And then, of course, I wanted to continue in academia, and I had like everything sorted out. And 1 year into my master's, and keep in mind, my project was doing really well. I was one of the lucky ones. I was very happy with how everything was going. I couldn't believe all the results that I was having. And then everything took a different turn. So I started applying for my permanent residency here in Canada. And I was checking what options that I wanted to do later. And I was doing some interviews for the PhD, like for PhD supervisors, and just checking other labs. And I remember one of the supervisors that I met, she just looked at me and she's like, why are you in a hurry? Why don't you go just check what's out there, see if something that you like, and then you can always come back and do a PhD, right? Like just take a day, like a year off, check what's out there and stuff. And that got me thinking, like I got accepted at different labs, but at the same time, I started thinking like, do I really want to continue down this path? And I started doing some research, just checking what's out there. And then I realized that, I was good at doing experiments, but I don't think I'm a brilliant scientist. You know what I mean? Like I'm good at science. I love science. I'm very passionate about everything that's happening, but I think that my personality best fits something that is completely different. So I decided to start checking what's out there, and I decided I didn't want to continue in academia anymore. I didn't want to even do my PhD. I didn't think it was relevant to the path that I wanted to take outside of academia. So I started applying for jobs, and I started looking, and then ended up doing different ones, and ended up what I'm doing now. So that's kind of how I ended up doing here. but we'll talk about that also after in some questions.
All right, so I guess I'll add to the list of meandering stories where you don't know you were going to end up here, but you did, because that's the gist of my story as well. So like Amanda, I'm an immigrant too, and twice over. I grew up in India. I loved chemistry since I was 12. So I always knew I wanted to keep pursuing chemistry for as long as I could since I was a kid. So I went down that path. I did my undergraduate and master's studies at the University of Delhi. In 2012, I applied to PhD programs. I got into the University of Maryland in the United States, immigrated there, enjoyed my research program. I'm an organic chemist by training. I worked with a class of compounds called molecular containers, literally molecules that hold other molecules and do cool things in the pharmaceutical sector. So did that, loved it, but and thought I was going to be a professor. But then somewhere midway down my PhD pathway, I started getting distracted. I got into student government. I started becoming aware of some more diverse career paths. And I started asking myself, do I want to stay in the lab? Can I do something outside and still be involved with, the scientific community and the research enterprise? So thought long and hard. But in my first position, I ended up at a startup as a research scientist. So that was 2 years of more doing research work and making a low-cost vaccine, and that was fun, but I became even more confident that I didn't want to stay in the lab. And at that point, I immigrated again, and this time into Canada. And I decided that my next job transition is going to be something I really absolutely want to do. It's going to be related to this field, but I'm not going to be in the lab anymore. That was rough. It was really hard to find my first position. But I started volunteering with the Canadian Science Policy Center. Loved it. In a few months' time, got offered a position as program manager there. And I didn't look back, I think, after that. I knew I loved science policy. I met some MITAC science policy fellows that year. And I learned about this really incredible program for PhDs to transition into the public sector in Canada. I applied, I was lucky, got placed at NSERC, and so that's how I am where I am. I think Diana is speaking to us, but okay.
Sorry, nope, that's all Ashima.
You're fine. Okay, good. I think I'll go ahead. So I think the next question is pretty much follow up on that. And like what I was thinking, that regardless of the career stage, leaving academia is some kind of an adjustment. You make some adjustments. So I thought it would be very interesting for our audience to know, like, a biggest adjustment that you made leaving academia and moving to this professional space. Like, were there any surprises, and like, how did you deal with that?
Team, I don't know, Chris, do you want to take the lead on this, or?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I guess for me personally, like the biggest adjustment that I see is that, you have this perspective in your head, you build up the story, you have this, the story, your vision, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be like all, just daisies everywhere. It's going to go as smooth as possible. But then reality hits, you're like, no, this is not actually like smooth or anything. Like you think that this is going to be super easy to transition out of academia and going into any of the other sectors that are out there. But to see the road and to kind of prove your worth and prove your value, you have to like learn a lot of experience and do a lot of preparations ahead. So every time you go through like this, a certain obstacles, or you're going through this, what you have to learn from it. And my adjustment was honestly just to have kind of like a system of mentally taking this notes of like every time I'm doing something, I just adjust it for the next time. Like based on the skills, based on the interaction with the different people that I've had, and anything will bring value, right? So we're talking with interviewers, you're talking with networking with different people, you're talking with anything. The biggest adjustment is just making sure that you don't build up the story in your head. You actually see it, the reality as it is. Do the research before, do the preparation before, and don't be afraid of rejection. Like what's honestly, just always ask yourself, like, what is the worst thing that's going to happen? So like just having this mentality and this shift and change of just thinking things through and making sure that they're okay. This is kind of the biggest adjustment that I see that most people face, and also personally that I face firsthand. So
Yeah, if I could riff on that adjustment too, I think like when I when I did go and interview at Nutriag, I went and they basically said, do a presentation for us. And part of my role now is presenting to clients and to growers. So that was part of the reason. But they've done that with every other scientist that they brought on, whether or not they're actually going to be presenting to our customers. So the first presentation I come in and do, the guy who's my supervisor now, Kelly Tanaka, had said, you can present some of the work that you've done. Some of it seems like it's maybe a little bit applicable to us. So go ahead and present some of that. So I'm looking on their website to figure out, okay, how can I make what I've done in my postdoc or even in my PhD kind of fit? And so I went in and I did my presentation, and it was all like, basic research, like cell biology, which is not really interesting to them. So as I'm giving my first presentation, watching everybody's eyes glaze over, which is going to happen to us all as
yeah.
Experts on this subject, right? But we go into a company and they have these goals that are totally separate from what we're experts on. So I give the presentation, like, okay, it's good. My supervisor now he was really trying to follow along, and he was just seeing the quality of how I was speaking, and he was okay with that. So the president of the company wasn't there that day. So I got a second interview. Well, when I came back in, I thought, I have to do a better job here, because now I know which parts of this were not interesting. I watched everybody fall asleep. And so I changed my presentation. And partway through it, my supervisor the second time said, "Is this different?" And I said, "Yeah, I thought some of this wasn't appropriate, so I switched it up." And he just, ah. And I saw that look and I thought, I'm
Yeah.
good. Right away, I knew like I had checked the box that he needed to see. So that, yeah, being astute, reading the room, figuring out what you need to do to get better every single time you do something, whether it's an interview or a task at work, is really key.
Sorry, taking time to unmute myself. No, so I completely relate to the experiences of Amanda and Chris. The rejection is real. You get rejected a lot before you see that light at the end of the tunnel, and that did take me by surprise. I did not know it would be such a struggle to convey that I have the transferable skills. Like, I'm the same person. I had the skills, but it took learning the language of this sector and presenting yourself in a certain way. Like in my case, it also took building a professional network in a new city, which can be so tough. And informational interviews, I learned, are not enough to make professional relationships. The way I started making professional relationships in a new city was by volunteering, because I saw those people again and again over a period of time. They saw my work, made friends. That worked for me. But I was just so confused. Like, keep talking to people, like, how am I going to make professional relationships? And just quite a learning curve, I think.
Yeah, which is a great point, Shweta. Like, it's not, none of us are born, well, we're not born masters, right? We're not going to be, oh yeah, like you're just born with the skills and that's it. You just have it. You have this talent. You have a superhero kind of thing, and that's it. Like, it's a superpower. We all learn, we all grow. Everything that you do, this is the best quality you can have. And the fact for rejections, it's not really, the whole thing is like shifting your mindset, right? So, we're all hearing about like emotional intelligence, we're hearing about empathy and all these stuff. But if you use some of the elements that you're hearing all around us and just apply it to yourself. So don't think about it as rejections. Just think about it as, just obstacles that you learn from them, or challenges that you learn from them to get to actually where you are. And you never know, maybe it wasn't meant to be yours, and that's fine. Just keep that mindset also with you. Yeah.
I think that's a really good point too, because I think a lot of moving out of an academic space is repackaging and rebranding yourself, and it's not going to be a one-time thing. I think that's kind of the biggest advice that I've been given in having to move from academia outside, is that one of the barriers that comes up a lot for academics moving into professional roles is the idea of not having traditional experience. Especially even for entry-level roles, some of those require 2 to 3 years of experience. but all of us that have pursued any kind of graduate school understand that we do have project management experience. We do have critical analysis skills. It's just how to sell that. So that was probably one of the best pieces of advice that I've received, is to continually be repackaging yourself. Is there any advice that you received, or advice for transitioning in industry, that you wish you knew before you started?
That's a good question. I think partly it's the ability, like you're saying, to repackage or to sell yourself, and to think of, yeah, it is really selling yourself, right? They have this criteria for a job, and there's 20 of you that applied for the job. What's the thing that they need to hear from you that'll get them to, get your foot in the door? Once you're there, you can work your tail off and you're good, right? But it's getting your foot in that door. It's a trick. I don't think it's a science, it's an art.
Yep. And don't, like, to Chris's point, like, don't think about it as just, you're an expert at this, so it's given that you're gonna get the job because you're the only expert on that. It's not really the case. Like, everybody is trainable. Each company has their own kind of like SOPs. They had their own onboarding. They have their own training. So you're going to be trained to anything. It's your personality and whatever you bring ahead and your confidence. It's the art of actually selling. It's the art of selling yourself to people. Just since I'm talking, might as well. I'm sorry, team. I'm just like taking over all.
No worries.
So for the pieces of advice that I would give is, honestly, I have two, but they're kind of related to each other. So the first one is patience, and the second one is adaptation. So first, don't be too hard on yourself. Actually, like, it's okay. Like, don't expect that, don't put this pressure of, I need to find something right away the next day. I understand we all have different circumstances, and I'm not saying anything about anyone, but don't be so critical about yourself. You're so harsh. Like, we're all harsh on ourselves, but we have to be patient when it comes to certain things. Like, just know that with time comes experience, and we learn. Concerning the adaptation and how you could relate it to the patients, anything that you do and what you're learning with the process, you have to adapt. Like, was Chris's moment when he explained kind of the examples of when he was being interviewed, that's exactly how it is. Like, he adapted for the next one because he saw how it is. They weren't looking for this and they were looking for something else. He adapted and he got the job. Right, Chris? I'm hoping, because it's the same company, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he got the job right away. But it's just like the art of selling, of knowing yourself, being patient, being kind to yourself, and also combining it with the adaptation, which is the most valuable transferable skill that you could have, and it's the most soft skills that you could have that people are looking for in project management and business development. Even as a scientist, as a research scientist, you'll get more opportunities if you're more open into like hearing more ideas, learning from other people and stuff. So just one short maybe a cycle, if you want, or a process that worked for me is always like research or preparation, research, prepare, apply, learn, grow. That's literally it. It's just 4 steps. We're just like, if you prepare yourself, you apply it, it didn't work. I changed, I adapted, I learned from it, I do something else. And then this is how I grow as an individual. I'm not the same person that I was when I left academia. That was like a couple of years ago now. But at least like I know now that I could laugh at how I was before. I was anxious for all of this and I learned a lot. So I adapted to where I am now.
Well said.
Yeah, I'm just gonna like backtrack a little bit in terms of what I wish I knew when I was, finishing up my PhD program, or maybe even when I was early on starting off. What I wish I knew is that there are diverse career paths that people with PhDs can embark on and succeed in. I was not aware of the full range of opportunities available at the beginning. And so I was thinking within a very narrow mindset of, this is probably what I need to do, a postdoc, right? I'm doing a PhD. I can pretty much take on a research job in the industry or in the academic sector. That's the mindset I went in with. And so I wish I had done informational interviews within like my first or second year of my PhD program and just opened up my mind to all of these possibilities earlier on. And once you've decided you want to transition, remember that you have to be able to demonstrate your skills, right? And part of that is absolutely marketing and communicating in the right language for the sector that you're interested in. But part of it can also be doing some of that work in some capacity. So during my PhD days, if I had known I wanted to be in science policy, like maybe I would have written something for the Journal of Science Policy and Governance or done some other work which I could have demonstrated earlier on. But because I didn't have clarity, I didn't know what my options were, took me a while to get there. So the sooner you can gather information, and then it's an iterative process, like Amanda said, right? You try something, you succeed or fail, you learn from it, you recalibrate, and then you make a much stronger next attempt. So sooner you start and the more informed you are, the faster you'll get to where you want to be.
And just to Shweta's point, which is like bullseye, it's an amazing point. It's not only for PhD. There's a lot of PhD candidates and even like graduates all over Canada. I'm just talking from the Canadian perspective for now. And you know how the job market is. It's so hard to find a job out of, especially if you're a PhD, you hear a lot like you're overqualified or stuff like that. So this doesn't apply only if you're a PhD student. Like, don't go through the past like we all did of like, oh yeah, I don't know what to do next. I'm doing my master's. I got the opportunity to fast track, or I got the opportunity at a great lab. So I'm just continuing on. Have this mentality of starting to be, what do I want to do from the start? Like, what do I want to do later on? What is your aim? Don't just go with the flow and just aim it. Do like Shweta was saying, like, if you have the chance, if you know what you like, combine your passions. You like science policy, go do some writing or go check some seminars, talk to people who do that kind of stuff, even early on. It doesn't have to be at the PhD stage. Just learn what you want to do even ahead of time. Yeah.
Yeah, I found I to that point, just, and this is my own experience, I never was able to really decide what exactly it was that I wanted to go after. And some people have, a specific thing that they're very passionate about. And I think, like, man, that must be nice because you know what you're aiming for. But with me, it was any project I got, I could find something that was interesting, right? Any job I had held before, if it was construction, if it was working at a CD store, like, there was something interesting there and there was something challenging and there was something I could take from it. So just figuring out what to do, man, that's tough.
But think about it more like, see how you said that you found something that you liked in it. But there is something like a commonality between all of these, right? There's always like a commonality between most jobs or most projects or something. There is an aspect that you like. When we're talking, like, if we're backtracking over your journey. So let's say you're now at a certain stage in your life, at any stage. It doesn't even have to be at like the PhD or postdoc or any level. It could be just like you're 40 or you're 50 and you want to change entirely your thing. You're not happy with what you're doing with your career. So what I'm talking about, like, seeing what you want and like finding your goal, which is super hard. It could change, right? You're trying, you're changing, you're doing all this stuff. I'm thinking more like very high level. So think about what you like in terms of, I don't know, I like being super organized. I like to learn something new every day, So like I'm in the business where every day, every project that I touch is different, completely different. Every client is different. Every program that I develop is different. Every communication that I do is different. And that is something that I really enjoy. I don't like the routine. I don't like the stuff. And I like to touch and to coordinate with different departments. I like to know what's out there. And that was something that I really enjoyed. But it took me a while to kind of know that, oh, this is a possibility there. So like, to your point, it's not only to just see, like, have a specific goal in mind and be like, oh, I'm just going to go for it, which is amazing if somebody has it. But it's also like, just don't be hard on yourself. Just look at it more like, oh, I like this. I'm going to adventure into this and see what kind of positions that are out there that has this in it. You know what I mean? Just elements, not only just goals.
Yeah, like kind of make your list as you go. That was good.
Yes.
I'll put that on my list of things I like. Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's good. I make lists too, which is amazing.
I'm going to cite a resource here based on what Amanda is saying. So I think you can look up, the AAAS has a guide on this where they ask you questions about your values, like what do you like about your work? What do you value in your career? And then they give you a bunch of options for which careers, that there'll be percentage scores for which careers are you better suited for based on your skills, your values and interests. So look into those resources and consider looking at your career from that angle, and you might arrive at some answers.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. That was great discussion. And so, Chris, there's a great point that you make. And so you say about like how postdoc, like some people perceive as negative, but for you, it was more of an experience. And I cannot agree with you enough on that, because in terms of my own personal development, I just feel that doing a postdoc turned out to be a great investment. I discovered my strengths and learned new skills. So can you elaborate a bit on like what skills and knowledge did you learn, like especially during your postdoc, that you've been able to apply in your current role?
Yeah, certainly. So I would actually say when I started my postdoc, that was the first instance where I started to like get an idea about what I would need to do to get a job long term. So I ended up doing my master's and doctorate. It was botany, and that was because I kind of got in from the molecular and cell biology. So I finished those, and I'm thinking like, wow, this is going to be tough. Like a botany degree, what am I going to do? So I thought, well, I'm at University of Guelph. We have this plant agriculture department. It's like world famous for agriculture. So I thought, well, I need to go more applied. So I ended up finding a position that was to do applied research on. It was looking at apple fruit under controlled atmosphere storage. So like they harvest the apples, put them in storage for 6 months, and then you hope nothing bad happens while they're in storage. So it was an applied project, but I didn't actually work on the applied part of it. But that was enough that it started to steer me that way. As part of that, I started to work with the Ontario government, MAFRA. And so the project was sort of in collaboration with them. So then I started to meet a few people in government, in industry. And so you get to talk to those people, see what they know about industry. So I was learning and networking at the same time. And the professor that I worked for as a postdoc was very no nonsense. Like, you're in the lab on the weekend, like there's no excuse for you, like you got to do this. And it was sort of like, put on your big boy pants, Chris, or this is not going to go well for you. Like some people would break down and not be able to handle this prof. So I think I've experienced people like that in industry as well, and you're going to deal with that, and you're not going to have this supportive, really loving environment that we all know a university to be, right? You're in the real world and you got to get this job done. I'm paying you to do it, so it needs to be done. It needs to be done yesterday. And if you don't like that, there's the door. So I think hardening up a little bit was pretty important, and not taking myself so seriously. If the boss tells you, like, you didn't do that right, do it again. Well, okay. Yes, sir, I'll do that. So sort of real life lessons started to seep in at that stage of the game. A bunch of biochemistry was interesting too, but I think that wasn't as applicable across the board.
Awesome. Shweta, Amanda, do you have anything to add to that?
I'll just say I learned that lesson in grad school. I had a tough boss, and I learned that lesson of, you've got to do what you've got to do to get the results, I guess.
I think the probability in academia might be a bit higher, but to Chris's point, it's 100% true. Like that's why we hear a lot about the difference between a manager and a leader, right? Like you expect that your manager and your colleagues, not only your like someone you're reporting to, but also your colleagues, you expect that everything is going to go really well and they're going to be super supportive and it's going to be such a positive environment around you all the time. But in most companies and in most cases, it's not really the reality. Like you have a lot of people who's going to be threatened by you, a lot of people who's going to be jealous by the way that you handle yourself, the way that you present yourself from your skills and everything. And even it could be your boss, it could be your manager, it could be anyone. And you're going to see like there's a lot of obstacles and hindrance along the way. So you just have to, like, to how Chris put it, don't take it personally. Like, don't think about it like more as, oh, if they're criticizing you or criticizing your work, that means they're criticizing you. It's not you. It's actually just your work. And it might be because it's something to do with them. You always have to put yourself in kind of other people's shoes, or just brush it off. Like, just toughen up a bit, harden it. Like, it's fine. If I didn't do it correctly the first time, they gave me some good feedback. I know for next time, I'm not going to do it again. I'll learn from this. I'll do it. I'll apply it, and I'll just work on it. It's just, people aren't really as nice as you think they are, right? So it's just maybe the reality. Like Tiana is just laughing about this, but it's how it is. Like it's how the interaction you see now on social media. It's literally how it is also in the workspace. It's not really related to the sector. It's not related to the industry. It's a personality thing and it's a company thing. It's the culture that the company has, which is a great question to ask in an interview. You're also allowed to ask questions. I'm just telling you. And an environment and a culture in a company is a big, big plus. It changes a lot. It's not the money, it's not the work, it's the culture.
Yeah.
So those are really great points. And I think, as they say, always save the best for the last. So this brings us to our final and most favorite question, which is, can you tell us like a weird or a humorous incident associated with your transition story that you find funny now?
I'm gonna go first on this because I know Chris has a very funny story. I don't want to speak after him on this one.
Oh no.
Okay, so the funny story that I have is only funny now. It was not funny when it happened. So when I realized that I'm applying to 50 jobs, 100 jobs, getting rejected, not able to form a professional network in a new city, I thought, let me make a list of professional organizations where I can volunteer and let me apply there. Let me aim lower, start there, do something good, and then show that. I actually got rejected from 2 volunteer roles. And I was so bummed out. I thought, wait, I have such great skills. You don't even want me to work for you for free? And so that happened. And this is just to say that if you find yourself, facing rejection, just know that it happens. It happens to people. And then sometimes you can succeed despite that. So hang in there.
Oh God, before Chris also jumps in with his amazing story that he kind of told us that he's going to say an amazing story. So very high pressure here.
I didn't call it amazing. I said I had a story.
Funny. Okay, you said a funny story. I don't have a funny story, but at least like I could share something with you. Like now I was trying to think over the last couple of weeks, like what is a funny story or transition I could share with all of you? I don't have any. They're all sad, unfortunately. But I could just tell you that I've had like very weird interactions with people though. Like along the way in different interviews and different even networking events and all these stuff, I've had very weird interactions where people actually would ask me like, is this my real name? Like that kind of stuff, like yeah, I know Chris's face says it all, but yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's a lot of like weird stuff and like funny stuff that happens along the way, but I can't tell you a story. So I just wanted to put it out there before Chris's, so I don't have to be on the spot after. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, I'll do my best. First, I'll also acknowledge, yes, the job search is the most soul-crushing activity that I think a human being can embark upon. So yes, don't be discouraged. Most people seem to find a job eventually. We all have, so I'm hopeful that everybody on this call will as well. So the kind of funny story I have was to do with the transition from the postdoc into this job that I have now. And so when I was a younger fellow, when I could grow hair, I had a luscious long mane of hair, and so that got hacked off because of I started to lose it before my postdoc. But when I was a younger man, I had an eyebrow ring. And I kept that through my postdoc, even though I had a very conservative professor. And then I thought, okay, well, I had a couple kids at this point, and I thought, like, you're a bald old man, Chris. Like, take that thing out if you're going to go apply for a job. And so I could just put it in and out. So I took it out, and I went for my first interview at Nutriag. And so I told you, I had to go back for a second interview. And in between that, my supervisor phoned the professor I was working for. And after the call, the professor calls me into the office and he said, "Oh, I just spoke to Kelly from Nutriag about you." And I said, "Oh, how did that go?" And he said, "Oh, no, I was nice." He said, I said all good things about you, but I did mention, I said, the only thing about Chris is that stupid thing in his eyebrow." And I said, "Barry, I took that out for the interview." And he just goes, and so that was literally it. He sort of ratted me out that I had a piercing, but Kelly didn't know what he was talking about because I had gone and taken it out when I went for the interview. So that was all I could come up with for the jelly bean question. So I hope that passed the cut the mustard there.
8.5 out of 10.
Thank you.
And no,
I would have taken 7.
For so long. It's like, what is this story? I don't know what you're gonna go with. No, that's fantastic. So there's a couple of questions that have come in from the audience before when they were registering, and there's some really kind of, I think, ones that are applicable to everyone right now. So we're gonna segue into the Q&A session. So I think Christine wanted us to switch over to a gallery view for a quick screenshot of everyone just before, if anyone doesn't want to stick around. So if anyone is not comfortable with their video being on, that's totally okay. If you are, please feel free to set your video to on for a quick second here. And Christine, you can let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Oh, I see beautiful faces everywhere now. They're starting to pop up.
This is great. We'll just let Nguyen join us. And are you ready, everyone? Oh, great.
We have a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry, not minutes.
Okay, at the count of 10. And my son says, I count so fast. Oh, there you go. Hi. This is great. Hold on. A second. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. Go ahead with the Q&A, please.
Okay. So the first one that came up was around networking and mentorship and how to go about getting those kind of connections when you're not really in the non-academic space. If there's any way that you can kind of suggest to go about seeking out those connections or finding a mentor and someone that you can actually trust in giving you advice, because I think we all know that, having someone in an academic role look over your resume is probably not going to get you the kind of advice that you get from someone who's been outside of academia. So if you have any kind of thoughts on that.
Well, just to find mentors and like somebody to help you, you mean, in general? Well, for that, now we have a lot of platforms, like social media platforms, that actually make the job a lot easier than it was like a couple of years ago, I would say. So for example, LinkedIn is a great resource for networking and these kind of stuff. And honestly, I can't tell you that you're going to reach out to people and they're going to be amazing mentors and they're going to be okay with having a chat or having like just a virtual coffee with you and stuff like that. I can't really say that, but I can tell you that if you keep trying, you're going to find somebody who will. Like, for example, there's a lot of people even on the call today that I met just because they reached out to me by just LinkedIn. They sent me a message, Ashima, looking at you. So like, she just reached out and she was telling me like, hey, I've been following you around for a bit. I've seen your post. I like what you're doing. Like, can you actually, can we talk? Can we have like a virtual chat? I'm not going to take too much of your time. And then we just started talking about all of this. And it's the same, like there was Nirali, there's a lot of people even on the call with that. It lucks out, like they're amazing people. They're trying their best to find actually what they want, a job that they actually like and all this stuff to transition out. And I was just lucky enough to be the one on the recipient side where they just reach out to me and I had time and I'm like, oh yeah, definitely, like I can help. But it's just, you just have to keep trying. What I'm saying is like go to networking events, check outside, also check LinkedIn is a great resource for this stuff. Reach out to people if you're interested in what they're doing, or you're interested, let's say you want to be a director later on at a company that does, I don't know, maybe botany or agriculture like Chris or something like that. You see somebody with Chris's profile and you're like, oh wow, like he has exactly what I want to be like in a couple of years or what I want even now. You reach out to him and be like, oh, hey, I'm looking for this. Like, don't be rude. I'm saying, like, don't add them and be like, oh yeah, I just want to meet you right away. Maybe do an introduction, like note saying that, oh, I'm adding you because I would like to maybe discuss a couple of things with you to know more about your job, maybe have a virtual chat with you later on. Like, just keep trying and don't be afraid to be rejected. It's fine. Like, some people don't have time and it's not personal. Some people will not even answer because they don't use it or they don't see this stuff. Some people are not, it's just not personal. They just don't have time or they can't talk. Some people have like very limited communication skills. I'm not going to say more than that. Like, don't take it the wrong way. If it doesn't work with the first one, there's a lot of people with the same profile. So just keep trying until you find somebody that you connect to on like a journey level, on an advice level, and also on where you want to be later on.
All right.
Yeah,
So
I think
on
putting
this,
that note
go
in is
ahead.
important to say
Oh,
like
yeah.
why you want to connect with the person, because I know
Mhm.
if I just get like a random LinkedIn that's just the auto message, I'm like, it's not interesting.
No, at least you get auto messages. I don't even get auto messages anymore. It's just like you get a click and then I get a pop-up later on like, hey, are you interested in our services? This is how it is. I'm like, yeah, maybe not. Just, yeah.
Marketing no 101.
No.
Don't sell right off the bat. I think that's
Yeah.
a really good point. Go ahead, Shweta.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if this doesn't work for you, because when I moved to Canada, I there were a number of very kind people. Um, Sometimes I would go out on coffees. They would agree to meet with me, and they'd be kind enough to buy me the coffee, give me all of this advice, look over my resume. But those people were like 1 in 10 when I was reaching out, right? And even with those connections, I got a lot of useful information and input. But when it comes to professional relationships, it has to be deeper than that. If tomorrow you want someone to recommend you for a position, that comes it's hard for someone to do it if they don't know your work. And unless you can demonstrate to them what you can do, it's very hard for someone to vouch for you. And that, I think, is the ultimate power of professional relationships. And to me, the only way to achieve that was in my voluntary capacity. When I was working with teams of volunteers, it was mixed. Some people were early careers, some people were like me, didn't have a job, were looking for a job. And then some people were more advanced in their career. Then guess what? You're on a team, you're doing good work. When you meet that person for a coffee, they'll be much more, forthcoming with not just information, but they'll connect you to other people and things like
Yep.
that. So that was kind of the secret sauce for me, is that 1 or 2 meetings you can achieve by playing the numbers game, but depth of relationships get built over time and through kind of shared interests, working on shared projects. Find opportunities for that type of collaboration if you can.
Yeah. Like to that point, there's also like the networking events. There's like amazing association organizations also like Swiss and even others that are out there to help people who are looking for these kind of stuff. You can always find someone to help if you look deep enough. Don't expect things to just come your way. You have to do the work to be able to get to what you want. So like exactly to that, always think with the mentality that if I don't try, I'm not going to get it either way. So even if I have a bunch of rejections along the way, eventually if I get to it, the value of it is going to be a lot higher than what I am now with the rejection. So just go for it.
I see a question that was in the chat where somebody was sort of waffling between they're looking for a postdoc or research positions in industry, but they don't have a final offer. But the thing that lit up for me was that they're saying that this academic lab that they have a tentative offer from collaborates with industry. And the question is, do you think that would help when they transition to industry?
Oh,
I
yeah.
would say absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Because, I'm in industry now. We collaborate with academic labs, and we do have to sort of recalibrate them and say, like, I know that you guys might want to do it this way, but that's not interesting to us. Like, I understand that that's how you're going to get a paper. So you guys can do that on your own time if you want to, but we need to do it this way because we need an answer and whatever the case is for the specific project. So that, I think that's a really good feature of that academic lab.
Oh, definitely. It's a huge plus because think about it. The more connections you have, the more you're exposed to different people, the more you're building your network. They're going to see your work. They're going to see your personality. They're going to see your work. They're going to see everything that you're offering. And like, think about it. If you have a friend that has, I don't know, they're great at doing ELISA. I don't know, I'm just saying a random now experiment. And like a professor is looking for somebody to do them for them. And they're like, oh, do you know somebody who can do this or doing that? The first person that pops in your mind is somebody that you worked with and you've seen doing these stuff. They left an impression on you. So whatever you can do to build this connection in this like academic and industry is a great like segue into transitioning into the industry as well for later on, or continuing to do this type of stuff. So always think about it as people bring value and people will leave an impression on you, and you will do the same. So whatever you can do to expand your network, to expand your connections, you need to do it. So it is a big plus.
Yeah, and just one more kind of related point I wanted to make is that I mean, I have nothing against like LinkedIn and coffees. That is absolutely the way to go. You need to get to know people in the sector that you're interested in getting into. But personally, one thing that I had issues with was the whole elevator pitch style, that you only have 20 minutes with this person and you've got to make such a great impression that they will be willing to talk to you again and again and again. And that to me is not an attainable goal. It's not a sustainable way to build relationships in my view and in my experience. So find ways to engage with people organically over time so that you are not under that pressure that, oh my God, I have 20 minutes to give this elevator pitch. If I, this is make or break. Everything doesn't have to be make or break, right? You can make consistent efforts over time and also achieve things.
And the elevator, I like the elevator pitch, Shweta. Always, like, even if you're not, think about it, you have to market yourself, right? So it's not, you always have to like personally brand yourself. You have to stand out. You have to do something. So always keep in mind that, how am I selling myself? And the interview, the first thing that pops, the first question always is like, oh, tell me about yourself. And they don't want to hear the generic stuff. And also when you're meeting people, it's the same thing. Like, you want to get to the bulk of who you are and what you're doing. If I just say like, yeah, I'm a project manager in e-training and e-learning, and I have a scientific background. Okay, like, that, good for you. That's really good, But if somebody like comes up and tell you like, oh, so I do this and I do that and I like doing this, like, it's just doing a twist to it, and always having you always have to think about whoever you're meeting, you're marketing yourself. Have ready your elevator pitch, do some twist. And to Shweta's point, like, always consistent work on yourself. Like, consisting on the long term will get the job done. And if you tweak it along the way, depending on the experience that you have, it's going to get you a long way faster.
I think that makes a lot of sense in rebranding yourself and, keeping those connections. It might be awkward to reach out initially, but making sure that you're actually making meaningful connections over just connecting with anyone and everyone. And I think it makes a lot of sense too. And, we're talking about like LinkedIn is a very powerful tool, but it also helps with identifying, okay, what groups are they a part of? Like, what are their interests? It feels a little bit like cyber stalking, but at the same time, these are like personal.
Oh, I'm going to stop you right there, Tiana. It is not cyber stalking. It is fair game. Information that is publicly available is accessible to you. Use it. Be strategic.
Right.
Why are they putting it out there if they don't want you to see it, right?
Yeah.
So by cyber stalking, which I like and don't like, I'm not gonna say we're live. Oh, this is terrible. Anyways,
Sorry.
but by following someone and knowing their interest, it helps you build a connection faster with them. And it also helps you like kind of do a triage, if you want, of knowing that, oh, I can't really connect with this person. Like, they have a different style or a different strategy. I don't think there would be even a good mentor or leader. Like, I wouldn't even approach them, right? But just knowing what their interests, knowing the groups that they're in, or knowing the posts that they're saying, like the language they're using, all this stuff, you can know a lot about these people on any of the social media platform, because what they're doing, they have a purpose for it, right? I hope all of you have a purpose on your social media accounts. If not, please create one. Think about what you want, what the messages you're doing for all of this. But that's a great point, Tiana. You should definitely do the research, check what they like, and then go to the next point, which is actually stalking them, obviously.
No, I think
Informed,
those are great. Yeah.
Evidence-based research, we'll call it that. I think, Ashima, do you want to do one last question?
I think we can do that. So I think this question is directed to you, Amanda. And so do you think the project management roles in the life sciences or biotech industry require a PMP certification?
Okay, first, I have to make a very distinct difference between project management and the life science sector. So project management is applicable for any type of industry and any type of sector. It's not related to a specific field. Okay, so like it's not only for life science sector. To talk about the PMP, so for most of you that don't know, PMP stands for Project Management Professional. And that is an international certificate that somebody can take after years of experience that they're doing. They do a course, then they do the actual exam, which is a long and it's a process, let's just say that. And then once you do the exam, you're certified, and the reason why people usually stand out that have PMP is because they have the lingo. So by knowing every person who has the PMP or had the training for the PMP speaks the same language. And this is very attractive to all the companies, right? So you're going to see now more and more companies are actually asking for a PMP. They're like, it's either they put like PMP is required or PMP is an asset. And that is because like if you have just the lingo, you can communicate with anyone, right? In any sector, in any field. But you have to know that it's not really, you don't really have to have the PMP to become a project manager. I'm an example of that, but I did the training course and I am planning on doing the PMP. Well, I'm still thinking about it. I have like 2 months left, but anyways. But it's more about, think about the project management, more the role position. It's about like doing very common and transferable skills. You're talking about organization, budgeting, coordination, communication. This is kind of the key elements for a project manager. You don't need the PMP. It's a plus. It helps you do the lingo. It helps you carry on. And I would encourage you, even if you see that companies have like, oh, they're asking for PMP, and you think that you have all the criteria and you fit all the boxes and you have even the skills to do it, I would still encourage you to apply for it. But just make sure that you transmit, you're very clear. You're like, I don't have the PMP, I have the training, I can get the job done, but I'm willing to do it. And most companies pay you and train you to do it. You don't have to do it ahead of time because it takes time and it takes money. I'm not saying like it's easy for everyone to do it. The success rate from the first time to do the PMP is, I think, like 30% or 40%. And now they changed again the exam and they changed the stuff. Like it's an ongoing stuff. Don't limit yourself by just thinking the PMP isn't necessary to do the project management role. That's it.
Just a quick note on that one too. So I don't know if anyone here has done any of the MyTax training and job. They have courses that you can do that are between 1 to 2 days, that kind of thing. They offer project management 1 and 2. After that, you have the educational hours to write a project management professional associate, which is a good way to do while you're still in grad school or pursuing a postdoc. Because I'm pretty sure the PMP requires a certain number of hours on a project, correct?
Yeah, it's years of experience. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have the title of project manager in your experience when you're applying to that, but you just have to have worked with projects. So for example, your master's and PhD do count if you place them like well enough, if you know how to word them, they do count. And to Tiana's point, MyTax has good programs, but also LinkedIn has free programs, and they're certified also by the PMI Institute. So if you feel that you can self-learn, some people don't like to self-learn. Some people do want an instructor there, or they want this more face-to-face setting. You never know. But if you are good with like self-learning, or you want to know what project management entails, go on LinkedIn. There's a lot of free courses that just tells you what a project manager does. And it's very different for each company. Don't think like, oh, a project manager has to cover so many things. Each company kind of takes one part of the project management cycle and actually applies it in their training, like in their organization. It's not really, you don't cover all of it. You just cover one part, and that's what you're in charge of.
I think that's a really good point and a very good overview of the whole complicated system. Okay, so just looking at time here, we're going to move into some breakout rooms. I'm just going to share the last thing. So the way that we're going to do this, everyone see that?
Yes.
All right, let me just switch it off. So for our networking blitz, the way that we wanted to do it is to give everyone a chance to either speak with any of our panelists. So we're going to have 4 breakout rooms, or there's a general networking. Is that okay, Christine? Can we do that?
Yes, so the general networking will be the main room.
Perfect, yeah. So I think the way that we are going to do it is kind of just assign everyone to a room. If you're not in the room you want to be in, come back to the main room and we will reassign you to your other room. Just a quick note again, if you want to keep up with any of the latest SWIST events, visit swiss.ca/events, or you can follow us on social media. We are on all socials, so LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. There's the other one. All right. So, Christine, if you would be so kind as to start that.
Okay, here you go.
You're inviting me to join room 2. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct. Chris, we need you to join group 1, room 1.